Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art and culture, and this is Billboard Breakdown. No time for any introductions this week. Busy week. We got a lot more details surrounding the new influx of country music when we get to it. If I want to keep this episode under 15 minutes because of this goddamn copyright strike, I need to go fast. Okay, top 10. Unsurprisingly, Adele held onto the very top with Hello because she's still dominating nearly every category, with her sales continuing to break records and her airplay showing no signs of slowing down. In other words, even though Hotline Bling by Drake went back up to number 2, on solid stats pretty much across the board, especially on YouTube, when Adele has over 5 times your sales, you're not stopping her. This takes us to The Hills by The Weeknd, which might have jumped back to number 3, but I don't see it lasting very long. Sales have slipped, airplay's dropping, it's here on streaming and really little else. But it was enough to hold off Sorry by Justin Bieber, which fell down to number 4. Even despite good sales, great streaming, and strong YouTube, airplay not gaining fast enough. Granted, it's doing better than What Do You Mean by Justin Bieber at number 5, which is losing airplay and slipped on sales and YouTube. In comparison, Stitches by Shawn Mendes is holding reasonably steady at number 6. Sales are consistent, airplay's still gaining, and streaming holds steady. It won't get higher without any YouTube, but it's not slowing down anytime soon. And now we come to our first new top 10 entry, Focus by Ariana Grande at number 7. We'll talk more about this song later, but it's here because of respectable streaming, good airplay gains, weaker than expected sales, and absolutely massive YouTube, all of which shoved back Taylor Swift's wildest streams down to number 8. Although with weakening sales and airplay, that might have been inevitable anyways. Similar case with 679 by Fetty Wap and Remy Boys falling down to number 9, only holding on thanks to streaming as airplay is slipping and sales are non-existent. And finally, we've got our second new arrival, Like I'm Gonna Lose You by Meghan Trainor featuring John Legend, the best song off her debut album, and even with that, it's because John Legend completely steals the entire song. Anyway, it's here on airplay, respectable sales, and a bit of streaming. Expect to see a lot of this for the next few months. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. And on a similar note, losers and dropouts. A few pretty big ones this week too, with Marvin Gaye by Charlie Puth and Meghan Trainor finally exiting, and taking Gonna Want It Tonight by Chase Rice and 100 by The Game featuring Drake with it. Okay, that's all positive. More importantly, Sugar by Maroon 5 has finally left the charts after a 42-week run. Who would have known that the most squealing, inoffensive song of the band's career would have been one of their biggest? And the majority of our losers have been around for a while too, with only Emperor's New Clothes by Panic at the Disco plummeting down to 98 off its debut last week, and Perfect by One Direction falling to 44 because that's what new One Direction songs do. Expect more of it. The rest, well, I can't say I'm thrilled. Levels by Nick Jonas dropped to 84 early, but if it's taking Love Myself by Haley Steinfeld with it down to 60, I guess I'm fine with that. And sure, Cool for the Summer by Demi Lovato fell to 72, but it's got all its points to get on the year-end chart, and it's taken Anything Goes by Florida Georgia Line to 65, and All Eyes on You by Meek Mill featuring Nicki Minaj and Chris Brown down to 57 with it. Again, it's a net positive. Shame it's really the only net positive here, because when we look at our gainers, both of them absolutely suck, and they've gotten both worst of the week from me. Exchange by Bryson Tiller rises up to 86 on Disingenuous' attempt to hook up with an ex, and Sam Hunt's Breakup in a Small Town is bitching about an ex while the music throws up all over itself. Still not enough to prevent it to going up to 42, but given that country radio got a bit of a culture shock last week, it'll be interesting to see how long it really sticks around, especially considering it's the 4th single from Montevallo. But before we get to discussing that further, let's blow through our returning entries pretty quickly, shall we?
I ain't like the mother niggas, and I ain't about to play no games with you. You know what your problem is. You don't ever see the big picture. Ooh, I want you to take me serious. Oh, baby, I want you to take me serious.
This is one of those tracks I completely forgot until this week, and yet every single time I hear it, I find more to remember why I didn't exactly like it. Chris Brown's painfully synthetic chorus clashing with Big Sean's lazy drawl filled with corny punchline after corny punchline that definitely phones in on the rhyming in the second verse. It's just nowhere near as good as that backing instrumental, which is actually pretty decent. And trust me, Chris Brown, for as much as you say you want me to take you serious, I think even the music video realized that was a losing proposition. In other words, this song isn't bad, but it's definitely not great either. I'd probably skip it. It comes around every Halloween like clockwork, and this time, no exception. Both because it is aged exceptionally well, and it's a great song. The massive synth hits with that transition to that sweet bass groove with great horror-tinged atmosphere, especially with that organ, with Michael Jackson proving just why he was one of the best pop stars of all time, with a visceral intensity that's impossible to fake and perfect for this brand of horror. But believe it or not, I probably wouldn't count this as one of my favorite MJ songs. The horns don't quite fit with the atmosphere. Even with the awesome spoken word outro from Vincent Price, the track does run a little bit long for me. Still, damn great track. See The Weeknd, this is how you do it. Okay, not a lot of time here. We've got a lot of songs to cover. Let's go. Number 100, We Went by Randy Houser.
Blue lights chasing through the path through the corner of County Road 44. Tore up a fence, jump in the ditch, felt so good. We didn't want it to end, so we went look.
So maybe it was bad timing for Randy Houser to release his lead-off single for his upcoming album the same week after the CMA Awards. But after 4 singles from an album that dropped in January of 2013, might as well get a new one here. And it seems like every B-list country star, Randy Houser decided to pivot straight for country tones that are way too slick and smooth for his vocals, with a lockstep beat holding until real drums finally come in. The bigger issue is that Randy Houser's a belter with a huge voice, and not only does this production kind of gloss over that or give him any sort of grit or edge, which it doesn't, the backing vocals definitely don't help here. It plays him against this fast-paced cadence on the verses that's not flattering at all. As a whole, lyrically, I've heard worse country songs in this vein, but I don't think this track's gonna be the huge starter that Houser's looking for, regardless of the poor timing of its release. Number 96, Already Calling You Mine by Parmalee.
On a shoulder like this ain't our first time. Girl, don't worry about holding on tight, 'cause I'm already calling you mine. Whoa, whoa.
Well, you know a band is scraping the bottom of the barrel when they're pulling from an album that dropped in late 2013 and that I barely remember today. But such is the case for Parmalee and this song. Now, credit can be given for a guitar with some real sizzle and real drums. After all, these guys are one of the few country bands still working in the mainstream, even if that guitar solo is really pitiful. But the larger issue comes in the lyrics straight from the bro country playbook with an unhealthy dose of presumption. Dude, you admitted you just met her, you don't really know her, and you're probably thinking too fast, and yet you're already calling her yours on the chorus? Look, this song was dropped as a single in February of this year, and it's only now clawing a spot onto the radio. But with bro country seriously on the wane, it's not about to last, and good riddance. Number 95, Beautiful Drug by the Zac Brown Band.
Addicted and I'm dying for a hit of your love. Got a death wish, baby, baby. Don't want you to save me tonight.
You know, I said Parmalee is one of the few country bands still working today, most because with tracks like this, I don't know if you can really consider the Zac Brown Band a country band anymore. Seriously, Zac Brown, if you wanted your EDM crossover, you should just release Tomorrow Never Comes, the pop version of mainstream radio, the acoustic version of country radio. You would have had a smash hit. Instead, we probably get the worst track from Jekyll and Hyde, trying to merge in acoustic guitar with a muddled slurry of a beat with played out lyrics. And yet, to give some Zac Brown some credit, this isn't a terrible song, most because he's still got a steady melodic foundation. The band can still put together a fast-picked stomper impressively well. Again, for EDM touch pop country, I've definitely heard worse, but Zac Brown is capable of much, much better. And thankfully, it's only here because of the CMAs, because it is really quite mediocre. Next, number 83, Me, Myself, and I by G-Eazy featuring Bebe Rexha.
I got that fire in my soul. I don't need anything to get me through the night except the beat that's in my heart. Yeah, it's keeping me alive. I don't need anything to make me satisfied, 'cause the music does me good and it gets me every time.
I'll admit my initial impressions of G-Eazy when I covered him months ago were not good. He came across as self-obsessed with a clumsy flow and with content that didn't even try to be interesting or anything beyond derivative. Now, I'll admit he did trade up for his hook this time, swapping out Remo for Bebe Rexha, who feels like a slightly less raw Charlie XCX. He has another spacious and melodic beat with a pretty damn solid groove for the hook. Honestly, the instrumentation and the hooks he gets are solid. That's the best part of the song. But when we dig into G-Eazy and his rapping and content, look, it feels like a softer, less interesting version of what Drake's been shoveling out this year, trying to find the existential ennui and success, and he's got no real commentary on. Hell, even his flow's a lot like Drake. Again, I like the hook, and I like the production, but again, I've already had enough of Drake this year. I don't need copycats, particularly when they're this bland. Number 51, I'll Show You by Justin Bieber.
I'm made out of steel. Don't forget that I'm human. Don't forget that I'm real. Act like you know me, but you never will. But there's one thing that I know for sure. I'll show you.
Wow, Justin Bieber seems to be transitioning into one of the least interesting pop singers of the past decade. And with I'll Show You, I figured out the reason why. There's no tightness in his delivery. Nothing that feels visceral or impassioned. Granted, the misty trap of this track doesn't really help matters. Anchored in a synth that's not bad until we get to the hook, or tries to build some squealing presence and does not fit with the rest of the mix at all. Now, I could go on by saying that compared with the howling dubstep that Skrillex used to make, this is a sellout, but the lyrics from Bieber deserve some consideration too, and showing his exhaustion with fame and all that pressure. Now, we'll never understand. No, Justin Bieber, I'm not feeling sorry for you at this point. And so far, you've only shown me tracks that are only interesting thanks to their production, not because of you. And even on this track, it comes across as really condescending. So yeah, no, not looking forward to that album. Next, number 23, Tennessee Whiskey by Chris Stapleton.
Strawberry wine. You're as warm as a glass of brandy. Honey, I stay stoned on your love all the time.
So now we get to the big story. Now, for those of you who didn't watch the CMA Awards, Chris Stapleton smashed the paradigm wide open by scooping up Album of the Year, Newcomer of the Year, and Best Male Performer. He broke Blake Shelton's streak, and the explosion of album sales in response has been absolutely huge. But none of that really translates to radio, except that between sales and the performance, radio's been forced to respond, and the song that he did with Justin Timberlake performed at the show, Tennessee Whiskey, has broken onto the Hot 100 pretty high too. And here's the hilarious thing. This song, it's a cover. Originally written for David Allan Cole before being covered by George Jones in the 80s and Stapleton now. And I'll go a step further and say this wasn't even my favorite song on Traveler. I mean, it's a serviceable cover that gains a lot thanks to Dave Cobb's great production, just being a damn solid country track with a rich tradition. But I honestly think that Stapleton over-sings the song a little bit, especially given the more mellow presentation in that bass line. But look, with this week full of country mediocrity, this is a shot of life that kicks all amounts of ass, and I'm thrilled to see what Stapleton is gonna do from here. Hoping for more from you here. Please let him get some radio because he deserves it. And finally, number 7, Focus by Ariana Grande.
Focus on me. 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 Focus on me.
So does anybody else wish that Ariana Grande would underplay her music, make more R&B instead of overblown pop stuff like this? Because this song is a mess, and with each listen it gets harder and harder to like. Yes, I can appreciate the real horns, especially on that bridge, interesting percussion, and those thin synths on the pre-chorus, they sound pretty good, but all those rubbery effects, the hand claps, and Jamie Foxx doing his best Mystical impression on the hook only highlight how much this feels like a blend of the worst parts of Problem and Bang Bang, all clattering noise and fragments instead of a defined whole, and it's definitely not even close to sexy. And with lyrics that feel token and Ariana Grande not sounding at her best, the composition of this track reminds me of a slightly less obnoxious version of Fifth Harmony's Worth It with Kid Ink. But minus a bad and forgettable rap verse and the insufferable entitlement of that song, there's really not enough to Focus for me to really like it, and not a great sign from her opening single for her third album, so yeah, count me as worried here. So yeah, that was our week, and wow, that's a whole lot of okay at best. Thriller by Michael Jackson runs away with Best of the Week, because of course it does. And honorable mention easily going to Tennessee Whiskey by Chris Stapleton. As to the worst, well, not really an easy choice, but for me I'm gonna go to I'll Show You by Justin Bieber for just bland sellout whining that's really insufferable. And dishonorable mention to Beautiful Drug by the Zac Brown Band for some truly egregious production missteps and getting those synths to blend with the guitars. As a whole though, these songs are just mediocre. It's one of those weeks. They weren't truly awful. Let's hope for better next week, but until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you